The last request. Dr. Elena Vasquez adjusted her formal diplomatic robes one final time before stepping into the Grand Council chamber of Nexus 7. The massive space station served as neutral ground for galactic commerce, its crystal walls reflecting the light of distant stars through reinforced viewing ports. She had walked these corridors hundreds of times over the past 15 years, always as a supplicant, always hoping this meeting would be different. Today felt different, though she couldn't explain why. The council chamber buzzed with activity as representatives from dozens of species conducted their business. The Xyloth delegation, with their chitinous shells gleaming under the artificial lights, dominated the eastern section. Their insectoid forms moved with mechanical precision as they sorted through trade agreements. The Korthak occupied the western platform, their reptilian scales catching the light as they discussed mining rights with smaller species. At the center sat Station Commander Thix, his amphibian features neutral, but his large eyes missing nothing. Belena's footsteps echoed in the sudden quiet that fell over the chamber. After 15 years, they all knew why she was here. Another plea from humanity. Another desperate request from the species everyone considered barely above primitive. The Council recognizes Earth's representative. Commander Thix announced, his voice carrying the wet undertones of his species. Dr. Vasquez, you may present your petition. Elena stood at the speaker's platform, looking up at the tiered seating where dozens of alien eyes watched her with expressions ranging from boredom to barely concealed contempt. She had given this speech so many times she could recite it in her sleep. Today, she would give it for the last time. Honored delegates, she began, her voice steady despite the weight of what she carried. I come before you again to request access to advanced medical supplies. The plague affecting our outer colonies has spread to 12 worlds. Without proper treatment, we estimate casualties will reach 8 million within the next 2 months. Prime Minister Vextar the Xyloth clicked his mandibles in what Elena had learned was their equivalent of laughter. Dr. Vasquez, your species' tendency to expand beyond your means is not our responsibility. Perhaps if humans focused less on breeding and more on developing proper medical technology, these situations could be avoided. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Elena had heard it all before. Too primitive, too reckless, too human. We're offering everything we can in exchange, Elena continued, pulling up holographic displays of Earth's resources, rare earth elements, agricultural products, even our historical art and cultural databases. We're not asking for charity. We're trying to trade. Trademaster Grohl's yellow eyes narrowed as he studied the displays. Your agricultural products are inferior to synthesized alternatives. Your rare elements can be found in any asteroid belt. As for your art, his forked tongue flicked out dismissively. What use is primitive cave painting to civilized species? The chamber filled with the alien equivalent of laughter. Elena stood there, absorbing the humiliation as she had for years. Her people were dying, and these beings treated it like entertainment. Captain Marcus Chen, her security escort, touched his earpiece and leaned forward to whisper urgently in her ear. Elena's face went pale as she listened, but she nodded and stepped back to the microphone. I've just received an emergency transmission, she announced. The colony ship New Hope, carrying 100,000 civilian settlers, is under attack by the Ravager pirates near the Kepler system. They're requesting immediate military assistance. The chamber fell silent. Even the most callous delegates understood the implications. The Ravagers were known for taking no prisoners. Elena's voice cracked slightly as she continued. I'm formally requesting emergency military aid under the Galactic Protection Accords. These are civilians, families, children. They have no military escort, no weapons capable of fighting off a Ravager fleet. Prime Minister Vextar's compound eyes glittered coldly. The Protection Accords only apply to recognized galactic civilizations. Humanity has never qualified for full membership status. Then grant us emergency recognition, Elena pleaded, abandoning all diplomatic pretense. 100,000 lives hang in the balance. What do you want? We'll give you anything. Our entire planet's resources, our technology, our freedom if necessary. Just save those people. Trade Master Gruel leaned forward, his massive form casting a shadow over the platform. Your species should have considered the consequences before expanding into dangerous territory. This is a valuable lesson in the cost of ambition. Elena stared at him in disbelief. You're going to let them die to teach us a lesson. We're going to let natural selection take its course, Vextar replied. Perhaps the survivors will be wiser. Elena felt something break inside her chest, a cold certainty settling where hope used to live. She looked around the chamber at faces that showed no compassion, no empathy, no recognition that they were discussing the slaughter of innocents. These beings weren't just indifferent to human suffering. They enjoyed it. Captain Chen touched his earpiece again and whispered something that made Elena's eyes widen. She nodded slowly, a strange expression crossing her face. I see, she said quietly, her voice carrying clearly in the silent chamber. Well, then I suppose there's nothing more to discuss. Elena began gathering her materials, moving with deliberate calm. The delegates watched her with the same bored expressions they always wore when humans finally accepted defeat. Dr. Vasquez, Commander Thix called out, will you be submitting a formal request for next session? Elena paused, looking up at the commander with eyes that had gone completely cold. No, Commander. We won't be submitting any more requests. Finally accepting your limitations. Vextar clicked with satisfaction. A wise decision. We're not accepting anything, Elena replied, her voice carrying a tone none of them had ever heard from a human before. We're done asking. The subtle shift in her demeanor sent ripples of unease through the chamber. Something in her stillness, her complete lack of the usual desperate energy that marked human diplomats, felt wrong. Elena touched her communication device. Captain Chen, please transmit the report from New Hope. A holographic display filled the chamber, showing the colony ship surrounded by burning wreckage that had once been Ravager attack vessels. The massive civilian transport sat unharmed in space, while sleek, unfamiliar warships held position around it. The New Hope is secure, Elena announced to the stunned chamber. The Ravager fleet has been destroyed. No human casualties. Impossible, Trade Master Gruel hissed. Your species doesn't have warships capable of defeating Ravager raiders. Elena smiled, and several delegates instinctively leaned back from the expression. You're absolutely right. We didn't have them yesterday. Captain Chen stepped forward, his own demeanor transformed from that of a mere security escort to something far more dangerous. Dr. Vasquez, we have confirmation from all sectors. Operation Bootstrap is complete. What is Operation Bootstrap? Commander Thix demanded, his diplomatic composure finally cracking. Elena began walking toward the exit, her team falling into formation around her. For 15 years, we've come to you as beggars. We've pleaded, negotiated, offered everything we had for scraps of your technology. You've enjoyed making us grovel. She paused at the chamber's entrance, turning back to address the increasingly agitated delegates. But here's something you never understood about humans. We learn, we adapt, and we never, ever forget. The holographic display shifted, showing images that made several delegates gasp in alarm. Asteroid mining operations in systems the Council had declared off-limits to humans. Research stations in nebula supposedly too dangerous for human exploration. And ships, hundreds of them, designs that clearly incorporated technology from every major species in the galaxy. While we begged you for help, Elena continued, our best minds were studying every piece of equipment we could get our hands on. Every trade sample, every diplomatic gift, every bit of primitive technology you dismissed. We reverse-engineered it all. Prime Minister Vextar rose from his seat, his exoskeleton clicking ominously. This is a violation of technological accords. Earth will face severe sanctions. Elena's laugh was sharp and humorless. Sanctions from whom? The accords you never let us sign. The treaties you said we weren't advanced enough to join. You can't hold us to agreements you never allowed us to make. The display changed again, showing star maps with new shipping routes, trade agreements with species the Council had marginalized, and alliance treaties with civilizations they had ignored. The scope of it was staggering. You see, while you were busy keeping us down through bureaucracy and condescension, we were talking to everyone else you've dismissed over the centuries. Turns out, there are a lot of species tired of being told they're not good enough for your little club. Trade Master Grohl's voice was barely controlled rage. You cannot simply ignore galactic law. There will be consequences. Elena stopped at the threshold, looking back one final time at the chamber that had humiliated her people for so long. You're absolutely right. There will be consequences, but not for us. Captain Chen activated a device that projected a new set of images into the chamber. Fleet movements, supply lines, strategic positions. The delegates found themselves looking at a complete strategic overview of human military capabilities, and the scope of it left them speechless. We're not declaring war, Elena said softly. We're not making threats. We're simply done being your victims. The galaxy is bigger than your little council, and there are plenty of beings who appreciate what humanity has to offer. She gestured to the star maps, showing new trade routes and alliances. We've found partners who see us as equals, not pets. Species that want to trade with us, not lord over us. Civilizations that judge us by our actions, not our age as a spacefaring race. The chamber erupted in angry voices as delegates shouted over each other, demanding explanations, making threats, calling for immediate action. Elena watched the chaos with detached interest, feeling lighter than she had in years. One more thing, she called out, her voice cutting through the noise. The medical supplies we needed for our plague colonies, we synthesized them ourselves 3 months ago. The plague is already cured. We just wanted to see if you finally show a shred of decency. The silence that followed was deafening. Elena walked out of the chamber, her team behind her, leaving behind 15 years of humiliation and a room full of beings who were just beginning to understand that the galaxy had fundamentally changed. As the doors closed behind them, she could hear the chaos resuming, voices raised in panic and fury. For the first time in her diplomatic career, Dr. Elena Vasquez smiled as she left a negotiation. The new order. 6 months had passed since humanity's dramatic exit from the Galactic Council, and the silence from human space had grown deafening. What had started as curiosity among the galactic powers had evolved into genuine concern, then fear. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Determination, humanity's new flagship, watching the blue marble of Earth grow larger in the view screen. The irony wasn't lost on her that she was returning home as a conqueror rather than a diplomat, though the conquest had been of space itself rather than any enemy. Admiral, we're receiving priority transmissions from Nexus 7, reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim, her new Strategic Operations Officer. Station Commander Thix is requesting an immediate diplomatic meeting. They're using emergency protocols. Elena almost smiled. Emergency protocols. 6 months ago, they wouldn't return her calls. Any word from our exploration fleets? Fleet Commander Chen reports successful first contact with the Arcadian Collective in the Vega sector. They're interested in medical technology exchange. Admiral Torres has established trade agreements with 5 new species in the outer spiral, and Admiral Okafor's diplomatic mission to the hegemony refugees has been surprisingly successful. Elena nodded, feeling the satisfaction she'd never experienced in her years of begging for scraps, and our former friends on the council. Lieutenant Commander Kim's expression grew serious. Intelligence reports increasing paranoia among the major powers. The Xyloth have tripled their border patrols. The Korthak have started fortifying their mining colonies. Several species have attempted to trace our new trade routes and failed. They're scared, Elena observed. Good. Fear breeds respect in a way pleading never could. The communications officer looked up from his console. Admiral, we're being hailed by multiple vessels in Earth orbit. It appears we have guests. The main screen shifted to show a collection of alien ships in various states of distress. Alina recognized the configurations of several species that had been marginalized by the Galactic Council, just as humanity had been. "Put me through to the lead vessel," Alina ordered. The screen filled with the image of a being Alina didn't recognize. Its features were almost human but stretched vertically, with silver skin and large, dark eyes that spoke of intelligence and desperation. "I am Speaker Zenth of the Displaced Coalition," the being said, its voice carrying harmonics that suggested multiple vocal cords. "We seek an audience with humanity's leadership. We've heard of your departure from traditional galactic politics." Alina studied the being carefully. "Speaker Zenth, I'm Admiral Vasquez of the Terran Defense Force. What brings the Displaced Coalition to Earth? We represent 17 species that have been denied Council membership over the past 2 centuries, Zenth replied. "We've heard rumors of humanity's new capabilities and wondered if you might be interested in forming alternative arrangements." Alina felt the familiar thrill of negotiation, but this time from a position of strength rather than desperation. "Please dock with Orbital Station Alpha 7. We'll discuss terms." As the communication ended, Alina's aide approached with a datapad. "Admiral, you'll want to see this. Our intelligence network has intercepted communications from the Galactic Council's latest emergency session." Alina took the pad and read quickly, her eyebrows rising with each line. The Council was in full panic mode. Trade routes were being disrupted as species chose to deal directly with humanity rather than going through Council-approved channels. Several member species had formally requested information about joining humanity's new alliance structure. Most concerning for the Council, their monopoly on advanced technology was crumbling as humanity shared its innovations freely with new partners. "They're losing control," Alina murmured. "After centuries of maintaining power through scarcity and gatekeeping, they're discovering that cooperation beats coercion." Her communication device chimed with an urgent message. The display showed the face of Commander Thix, looking far less composed than he had 6 months earlier. "Admiral Vasquez," Thix began, his amphibian features showing clear signs of stress. "The Galactic Council formally requests a diplomatic meeting to discuss recent developments in interspecies relations." Alina almost laughed at the formal language trying to hide what was clearly desperation. "Commander Thix, how refreshing to hear from you. I seem to recall my last diplomatic meeting with the Council didn't go particularly well." "Circumstances have changed," Thix replied carefully. "The Council is prepared to discuss full membership status for humanity, including access to all restricted technologies and trade rights." "How generous," Alina said dryly. "And what prompted this sudden change in policy?" Thix's discomfort was obvious. Recent galactic developments have highlighted the importance of human contributions to interstellar civilization. Alina pretended to consider the offer. "I appreciate the Council's newfound recognition of humanity's worth. However, I'm afraid we're no longer interested in membership." The silence that followed was electric. Alina could almost hear Thix's political calculations crashing. "I don't understand," Thix finally said. "Galactic Council membership has been humanity's goal for decades." "That was when we thought we needed your permission to exist," Alina replied. "We've since learned that the galaxy is much larger and more diverse than your little club represents. We've found plenty of species eager to work with us as equals." Alina gestured to her aide, who began transmitting data to Thix's station. "These are our current alliance agreements, trade partnerships, and mutual defense treaties. As you can see, we've been quite busy." Thix's eyes widened as he processed the information. "This represents nearly 40% of known galactic civilization. How did you accomplish this so quickly?" "Simple," Alina answered. "We treated everyone with respect and offered genuine partnerships instead of demanding submission. Amazing how well that works." The transmission cut to a wider view showing Station Commander Thix in emergency session with Prime Minister Vextar and Trade Master Groll. Both looked significantly less arrogant than Alina remembered. "Admiral." Vextar's compound eyes glittered with barely controlled anger. "Humanity cannot simply ignore established galactic order. There are rules, procedures, hierarchies that have maintained peace for millennia. Elena's expression hardened. Peace for whom, Prime Minister? The species you've kept under your thumb. The civilizations you've denied technology to maintain your dominance. The billions of beings who've suffered while you play politics with their lives. Trade Master Gruel leaned forward aggressively. Your actions threaten galactic stability. Military vessels in restricted space, unauthorized mining operations, interference with established trade routes. This cannot continue. You're absolutely right. Elena agreed, surprising them. This cannot continue, which is why we're not continuing it. We're expanding it. The screen behind Elena lit up with a real-time map of the galaxy, showing shipping lanes, alliance territories, and resource distribution. The traditional council space appeared as islands in an ocean of new partnerships and trade networks. While you've been focused on maintaining control through scarcity, Elena continued, we've been building abundance through cooperation. Our partners aren't subjects to be managed. They're allies to be supported. Lieutenant Commander Kim stepped forward with another report. Admiral, Fleet Commander Chen reports successful integration of Arcadian biotechnology with our medical systems. The plague vaccines are now 98% more effective. Admiral Torres confirms establishment of 3 new shipyards in partnership with the Helix Consortium. Production capacity has increased by 400%. Elena nodded, then addressed the council representatives. Gentlemen, let me be clear about humanity's position. We're not your enemies. We're not seeking revenge for centuries of condescension and humiliation. We've simply outgrown the need for your approval. Prime Minister Vextar's mandibles clicked frantically. You cannot seriously believe this coalition of outcasts and refugees can challenge established galactic order. Elena's smile was genuinely sympathetic. Prime Minister, you're still thinking in terms of challenge and conquest. We're not trying to replace your system. We're ignoring it. The truth of that statement settled over the council representatives like a heavy blanket. They had built their power on being the gatekeepers, the arbiters of civilization. If enough species simply walked away from that system, their authority would become meaningless. What do you want? Trade Master Gruel asked, his voice barely controlled. Nothing from you, Elena replied. That's what you don't understand. We don't want your technology anymore. We've improved on it. We don't want your trade routes anymore. We found better ones. We don't want your recognition anymore. We found partners who value us. She paused, studying their faces. For the first time in human history, we have everything we need without asking permission from anyone. Station Commander Thix made one last attempt at diplomacy. Admiral, surely there's room for cooperation. The council could offer concessions, perhaps a seat on the ruling committee. Elena's expression softened slightly. Commander, I appreciate the offer. I really do. But you're still not understanding the fundamental change that's occurred. We don't want a seat at your table anymore. We've built our own. The communication ended, leaving Elena alone with her thoughts on the bridge of humanity's flagship. Through the view screen, she could see the bustling traffic of dozens of species coming and going from Earth orbit. Trade ships, diplomatic vessels, exploration fleets, research expeditions. The space around humanity's homeworld looked nothing like the empty void it had been just months earlier. Admiral. Her aide approached quietly. The displaced coalition representatives are requesting a formal alliance ceremony. They want to make the partnership official. Elena nodded, feeling the weight of history settling on her shoulders. Humanity had spent centuries dreaming of joining galactic civilization. Instead, they had become the foundation of something entirely new. Schedule the ceremony for tomorrow, she decided, and send a message to all our alliance partners. It's time to make this official. As she prepared to leave the bridge, Elena took one last look at the star map showing the new galaxy they were creating. Not through conquest or domination, but through the radical idea that every species deserved respect and partnership. The age of begging was over. The age of building had begun. And somewhere in the void between stars, The old powers were learning that the greatest threat to tyranny wasn't rebellion. It was irrelevance.